E-commerce is the latest buzzword in town, especially in times when India is witnessing its slowest growth in the last 5 years. Consumers are lapping up new ways of shopping and ordering, and retailers and brands today have a unique advantage to understand their shoppers. Right from visits to clicks and carts, they know everything about their customers. Every brand and marketer is intrigued by the growth of the channel and wants to understand the opportunity that this transformation holds. The e-commerce today gives brands an unprecedented power to understand the shopper and their baskets. What are they shopping for? When are they shopping? What will drive them to try a new product? What can brands do to gain more of that shopper's wallet? And how do they understand where their customer is moving to? What's their share of the consumer's wallet? And how can they monetize their customer ahead of competition? Here to share those insights with us is Kunal Gupta, Director and Lead Digital Retail E-Commerce for Nielsen India. Kunal?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Early start of the morning. I hope you've all had your coffees and are ready to have a dope on data. Okay. So a lot has been spoken about, and yesterday, and in a lot of public domain as well, about how big is fashion, how fast is fashion growing, what's happening in the space, e-com's taking over, tier 2 towns, non-metros are all kind of growing. So yes, we know it's a growth story. There are other challenges around it. But what we want to talk to you about is around understanding what is the consumer behavior which is driving some of these nuances in the e-commerce world. What is happening behind the scenes or going behind, in the consumer's behavior or the mind, and what is leading to this kind of a explosion in e-commerce specifically. Yeah? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to use data, and essentially the framework I used is basically to look at discover your audiences, understand who they are, acquire them, and then obviously you start engaging with them to increase the share of the wallet. So what we've done, we've used some of the AI-driven methods at Nielsen. We have a passive panel for about 190,000 consumers. We picked up about 2 or 3 months data from there, and we looked at about 10,000 to 20,000 shoppers who have shopped apparels today. So what we want to present you is some of these insights from this kind of a panel. And one of the important things that we, as market research, face as a challenge is that when you ask consumers about some of these purchase behavior, what happened, what did they do, they don't remember. So stated is a huge problem as a response when you ask consumers. So all of this data that we have is all passive data. No questions have been asked. It's all been observed, or it's all been captured through the digital footprints. Yeah? So let's look at broadly how e-commerce pans out today in the overall space. Yeah? So the first piece is discover. Today, fashion contributes to about 14% in terms of value share, and it is actually the second biggest driver in terms of footfalls, 26%. So every fourth order that an online platform today gets is from the fashion category. Yeah? So a lot of room to grow yet, but yes, it's already number 2 in its order share already. Next, if you break it by different categories like clothing, footwear, fashion accessories, clothing, of course, like the offline space, continues to be the biggest pie. And if you break it by metros and non-metros, which is non-metros, by the way, is 10 lakh plus towns, and top 8 metros are 50 lakh plus towns in terms of population. So we still see a large share of this value of this traffic that comes is all coming in from smaller cities. Yeah? And when you look at men's versus women's clothing, it is very surprising, but yes, a lot of online share today, it is we guys who are shopping a lot more, or our spouses who are shopping for us. So it is men's clothing which is driving a large part of this. Kids' clothing continues to be small, which is about 7%. Yeah? Very interestingly, given the internet penetration across male and female audiences in India, you'll see that only 18% female shoppers shop today, and 82% male shoppers. Now, there is an implication around this. A lot of you in this room would also be shopping with common user IDs, you would have shared IDs, and so on. So platforms are actually thinking that you are male, but you're doing a lot of female shopping online, right? So these are some of the challenges that exist in the e-com world, and when you connect them with personalization and other metrics, it becomes a challenge, yeah? So let's look at forward, what exactly is happening there. Today, 50% shoppers order other categories excluding fashion. 27% order fashion and other categories. But interestingly, only 22% shoppers are exclusive fashion shoppers who are not buying anything else but fashion only. So a huge headroom for a fashion customer to grow across baskets, a huge headroom for fashion brands or apparel brands to look at beyond in the same customer and also extend to other customers. Because it's very easy to convert an already converted shopper to buy and convince him to buy other categories. But to convince a guy who doesn't shop online and to convince him to start buying online is the real challenge. So you've got a shopper out there who's already buying a lot of categories. Now, how do you convince him to start buying other categories? Yeah? One more quick overview there. So 70% of the users today within the fashion space are only buying one category. They haven't even moved to second category or the third category. But the moment they do move from 1 to 2 categories, you can very clearly see a stark difference in how their shares on or spends on clothing jumps, how their spends on fashion accessories actually reduces, and their spends on footwear and other accessories start growing. So I came online, I wanted to test how does fashion work, I wanted to test online shopping. I started that with an accessory. I bought some earrings, I bought a dupatta, and boom, I got it. I liked it. And now I'll start moving to more and more higher ticket categories and more higher value items as well. So this is how, today the fashion landscape in the e-commerce world exists. Let's look at a little bit about how do we acquire such users, and today what is the state of new users specifically in the online space. Again, some startling facts. Yeah, 60 is the magical number we found. So today, there are at least 60 to 70% new shoppers in the fashion space, which means that every month, about 60% of the shoppers who come on to shop fashion or apparel categories are all new. They haven't shopped for the first time. So yesterday in a panel, Arun Srideshmukh from Amazon was talking about on how first-time shoppers and how fashion is bringing in a lot of first-time customers. So clearly, some of the external sources or the market data is clearly telling us. But what it is further telling us, which is very surprising in the red, is that all of these guys are not shopping every month. So there is a huge lapsing that is happening in this. You've made so much efforts, you've spent so much money to acquire the customer, to bring him on board. But guess what? He didn't come the next month. He didn't come the next month also, after that as well. So there's a lot of lapsing that is happening, and here is where brands really need to focus on how do we retain this guy. Loyalty plays an extremely important role here to be able to drive consumers, to drive repeat shopping, to drive come back on the platform. And as we progress, we'll kind of walk through some of the very interesting trends on how do we see a 30, 60, and a 90-day trend, yeah? Yeah, so in the first time consumers shop, as I was mentioning, we start with accessories, we start with very low ticket items. Okay, great experience. I move to the next month, and I move again on similar behavior of footwear and accessories. But yes, something changes after that. After I've experienced the platform, after I've experienced the channel for about 2 months, that's when I start moving to clothing. That's where you clearly see the footwear contribution, which was 25%, comes down to a 13%. Clothing goes to a 53%. Yeah? So immediately my basket size, my basket mix is changing. So 2 implications. Not only to retain the customer, but if you're going to push or personalize only accessories and footwear based on past purchase behavior to that customer, he's not going to buy that. So you have to understand what else is that basket looking like for other customers who are evolved versus new. And that's a very big implications for brands today to use data, not just for their own platform, but to look at what is happening in the offline world, what is happening across all channels, and that's where user personas also come in. Another interesting area where we also see male versus female shoppers. Again, if you look at ranking of the highest ordered products, so it's very different for males and females. Males start with footwear, moves to t-shirts and polos. Watches remains a number 3 for both of them. Then you move to casual jeans and so on. And women start with kurtis and men's footwear, watches, and again, they kind of move forward. So it is a very, very strong data-led implication that consumers evolve as they start shopping. And as they start shopping, it's important for us to understand what their baskets are going to look like, how are they going to evolve, and what is the next thing that, as a platform, that we want to sell. And for brands, it's extremely important to start thinking around how to drive some of these data-led decisions. Today, in the offline world, it's all season-driven, it's all market landscape-driven, like a mall versus a bazaar, and this is how the shopping is going to happen. But yes, a lot of trends are changing in the online space. And data is where brands can engage with platforms, brands can experiment a lot to understand some of these trends. Yes, not an implication, but an interesting fact. I think this big hypothesis that I keep debating with my colleagues is that my wife shops more than me, but I think the data is not telling me that, right? So men are equally shopping. If you look at all the cohorts of less than 500 price points, of 500 to 800 price points, and above 800 price points, it's very, very similar. That's how the numbers order. So not just women, men are also equally ordering online in equally big ways across all the price points we see. Very small difference by the metros and the tier 1 cities, which are the 10 lakh plus towns, but not startling. So this is how you can use data today, not just to drive personas for your own brands, for your own customers, but also to look at what else is the fashion shopper doing. Some of the examples, I'm not going to read them out to you, but what we have also been able to do is to understand, okay, the footwear shopper actually takes 3 Olas in a week. And he orders from Zomato twice, and has a grocery behavior which is like once in a month and is still trying it. And this guy this person who's buying, let's say 3 times a month, evolved shopper, has also bought clothing and so on, the behavior completely changes. So it's not just the personas within the basket, within the fashion category, but it's also the personas that you can extend to what does the shopper do outside that. And that is what data and personas help you to look at, let's say, lookalike audiences, to go to extended audiences, or to even understand within the panels what exactly are consumers doing. The third and the last one, which is engage. So now you've understood what's the fashion landscape looking like. You've understood how the new shoppers are extremely important, and how diversified all of them are. But then there is another data-driven layer where you are able to understand and engage to drive more and more engagement with these users. So now they've come on board. What exactly do you do and how do you do? So very interesting facts. Some of these are insights from the October festive sale season, big season, Diwali happened. A lot of sales happen in the online space, and we again saw very interesting facts there. So the first one was, if you look at the purple line, that's for the tier 1 cities, which is 10 lakh plus towns. The blue line is for the 50 lakh plus towns, which is the metros. So yes, metros are contributing less, but they actually grew 2.2x within the sale days. So this data is from 1st of September to the 25th of October, and the sale period, roughly, if you were to carve out, was between 25th or 26th of September to the 25th or 26th of October, right? So you clearly see on the first 3 days of the sale, that big jump that happens, okay, which is on the 25th or the 26th of September, 27th of September, that's when Navratri started, and that's when consumers started shopping. The other jumps that you see are very clearly linked with each of these events. Dussehra, Diwali start. So a lot of these things linked with these days. So not only marketplaces have managed to make these sale days bigger and bigger, and also kind of leverage customer behavior around that. Another important point that we saw was that about 30%, 1/3 of the customers or the orders were coming in from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. That's the time when the stores are closed. And that's the time when I am shopping. That's the time when most of you are shopping, because after a hard day's work, you're in your cabs, you've had dinner, and now you are on your mobile. Oh, let me just shortlist the best shirt. Let me just shortlist the best shoe that I'm going to buy now. And I'm going to discuss it with my wife and then kind of finally make that purchase. Now, this is the time when offline cannot help. You may have a big trade promotion going on in your offline stores, but that's not helping. If you're not online, if you're not present there and making those recommendations, that's where you're missing the bus. Fashion apparel buying does not vary by the days in the online space. It's a big one. Monday to Sunday, people are buying. Only 1% or 2% difference. So it doesn't matter that it's a weekend. I'm going to have a lot of rush now. I'm going to have the best promotions and the trades only for the weekends. Doesn't matter. I am buying right from Monday to Sunday, and the brands need to be available across all those times. So the last 2 points is that you've done a lot of customer acquisition, you've engaged the customer, you've understood that, but till the time apparel doesn't fix the supply chain, we don't fix our inventories, which is a big challenge today, we can't be there in terms of customer experience. Today, on an average, it takes marketplaces or inventory-led models or platforms about 6 days to deliver or to reach the customers. That's almost double than what it takes for CPG platforms today, and it's about 50% higher than what it takes for mobile players today. This is an aggregate. Some of the bigger players are doing it in just half the time as well. But I want things now. Hyperlocal. I want things in 2 hours. So I want things now, and I want them fast. If I'm going to get something in 6 days, and I have a marriage and a party tomorrow, I'm not going to wait for the shopping online. The last piece is around returns and cancellations. So if we don't fix our omni-channel strategy, if we don't have offline trials, try and buy, and other and other strategies in place, we will continue to struggle, where we see fashion having a 21% return and a cancellation rate. This is all passive. We've not asked anything. This is hard data that we see across month on how people are returning. Because things don't fit them, the description on the site or the content was not great, and hence I returned. But for FMCG and mobiles, again, it's high, but relatively very low. So yeah, coming back to just the closure. So if you look at the 3 pillars of discover, acquire, and engage. So I think I've said it all, but just to kind of sum it up, you have to understand the fashion shopper and to understand the lay of the land. Once you've acquired these new shoppers, which today are in abundance, they're coming there, you have to engage them by understanding how they are shopping and what they are doing at what time. So data is there where you can really leverage some of these aspects, and for brands and both retailers, that's where they can win in this space. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.